And we're live. Hail, hail. Good evening, folks, and welcome along to the Friday night show of the Endless Celts Podcast, episode 181. I'm Anthony, I'll be hosting tonight, and with no midweek games to review, we decided this would be a good chance to take a wee trip down memory lane and do one of our Champions League Rewind series, something we've been doing all season, just in paying tribute to the fact we were back in the tournament this year. To go back, that we trip down memory lane whenever we can and look at our efforts in the tournament in years gone by. And we're right in the middle of the Strachan seasons in this episode, season 2007-2008. It's a tale of penalty shootout drama, qualifying for the last 16 for the second year in a row and going toe-to-toe with the Catalan Giants in the knockout phase. And delighted to talk about all that and much more. Delighted to be joined by our usual panellist. Franny is in the house tonight. How you doing, mate?
Aye, all good. Friday night. It's the working week is finished, Anthony, and we're talking Celtic. I've managed to get myself a wee ticket for the football tomorrow as well again, so happy days.
Excellent. Happy goalies all round. And our very special guest joining us tonight, a friend of the show, a man who's been on a few times. We're always delighted to have him on. A man who's as talented with his typewriter as his namesake is, with a ball at his feet. Prominent Celtic blogger and CEO of the Celtic blog, Mr. James Forrest. How you doing tonight, mate?
I'm good, mate. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure, mate. Always happy to have you on. And as I say, it's we will possibly maybe do a wee touch on the St Mirren Cup game tomorrow, but we thought perfect chance to do a little bit of reminiscing tonight. And like I say, we're talking season 2007-2008, guys. Sort of to try and set the scene. Obviously, Celtic had won the league championship the previous season. They'd qualified for the last 16 for the first time that year. And they'd be the first team to qualify for the last 16 and win the league in the same season. A feat we've managed no fewer than 3 times, other than the side, of course, that done it. Oh, of course, they done it first and then finished third in a 2-horse race. So if that's something to shout about, then good for them. And before I go any further, of course, welcome along to everybody in the comments as well. If you want to just get involved in the show, but then all your comments will come up and we'll bring them up as we go along. Franco's in charge of that this evening. But as champions, we only had to play one qualifier that year, Franny, and it was against very tough side Spartak Moscow. And the away leg was getting played first on an artificial pitch in the Moscow heat. It was a night probably a lot of us were dreading, given some of our away form in the tournament. However, we rallied. We actually took the lead through a cracking header from Paul Hartley, and to put us in good stead. Spartak Moscow did equalise, but Celtic held out and went back to Glasgow with a very credible 1-1 draw. And you could say the scene was set for quite an epic night at Paradise in the decider.
It was it's a perfect result in the sense you go and get a score draw away from home in Europe, and your sort of opening qualifier. I think it was actually Paul Hartley's first actual goal for Celtic. I could be wrong, but I think it was. But it's kind of when you go away from home, I suppose in any knockout tie, you want something to play for when you come back to the second leg at Parkhead. So I guess at the start of the game, we would have all probably just taken like a wee 1-0 or a 2-1 defeat at the end of the day, because you're still well within it. We knew how good our record was at Parkhead, especially in Europe and stuff. So to actually come away with a 1-1, which essentially forced, because obviously the away goal was a thing back then. I know in recent years it's dropped out. So it was good to get that, and then it forces Spartak to really come out in the second leg. But it set up for what an absolute amazing night at Parkhead, and I think it was a week or two. I think it was a week later.
It certainly was. And James, obviously, Scott McDonald was rather infamous amongst the Celtic support prior to that summer. Obviously, his goals at Fir Park in 2005 denied us the league championship. But Gordon Strachan certainly seen something in him to bring him to the club in the summer, much to, shall we say, it was a split decision amongst the support. Some were just of the opinion that they would never forgive him for what happened in the summers before. Others took the notion that, well, he's in a Celtic jersey now, let's get behind him. I suppose if there's one way you want to make up for past mistakes, getting us off to giving us the lead in that match to create Poacher's goal, it was the right way to go about it.
And he had to make a good start because I was one of the people who was greeting my face off about signing him and was really pissed off about it. I thought it was an insult to all of us who had Black Sunday etched on our souls. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was a terrible signing. And he was exceptional for that whole season. He scored a lot of important goals that season, but it was important that he scored an early one, and he did. And we were off and running. And he actually had a great campaign after he'd got his feet under him. And as I say, probably the most important first goal a Celtic player scored in a long time.
Well, that was it, and obviously, even you could even sense it amongst the support, or certainly at least the ones watching it on telly. The first thing he did when he scored was kiss the badge, and to be fair, it was something he did a lot afterwards. As I say, any reservations we might have had, a lot of it did kind of wipe away when that goal went in. But of course, one of our favourite sons, signing from the year before, Jan Vennegoor, missed a penalty later on in that match. In extra time, no less, when Spartak were down to 10 men. And the sides couldn't be split. 1-1 in Moscow, 1-1 at Celtic Park, and the dreaded penalty shootout awaited Franny. Celtic had never won a penalty shootout in Europe up until then, and when Nakamura missed the second penalty, we thought it was going to be pretty much the same old story. However, Titov then missed Spartak's second penalty, and Jan Vennegoor made up for his mess in extra time. Derek Riordan, of all people, scored an absolute cracking penalty for our fourth. Magic Zarowski picked to put away the last one. Pavlyuchenko and I want to say Weinstava, put their penalties away for Moscow. So it was left to Pavlyuchenko to try and keep them in it. If they missed, Celtic were in the promised land. And the holy goalie came up trumps again, and qualification was secured.
It was what a night! That was my third season as a season ticket holder. And I was up the other end, my seat was up the other end of the park and stuff, pretty much in line with the penalty spots. So you've got a great view for the penalties, and I can remember Nakamura's one. As soon as he missed that, obviously it's early on in the penalty shout. It's one of them. If you're going to miss, you obviously want the earlier the better because you have more chance of getting in it, but. It's a guy you'd have put your house on scoring when you consider his ability for set pieces. Off memory, I can remember him pointing saying it was the line. As I said, I was at the other end of the stadium. I could tell for there it was the other line. You just knew if his reaction wasn't even convincing himself. I didn't think he struggled to convince himself. I think it was actually the line, but I think obviously go back to the extra time when Hesselink misses a penalty, you're like, oh, it's just not going to happen. And then the one he actually scores in the penalty shootout is absolutely ridiculous. I think he puts it right in the top corner. Yeah. Zarowski's penalty is brilliant. Riordan's penalty was actually really good. I think, if I'm right, Riordan came on pretty late, and I think that was one of the Strachan just brought him on for a penalty. Played for penalties, brought him on, could trust him, and came up trumps. And the one that obviously the second one Moscow missed was an absolute terrible penalty, and to be the deciding one wasn't a great one either. Boric has to obviously guess the right way. It's one of the ones, if it goes the right way, he's getting it. It's a decent height for the keeper. There's no pace behind it. And just as soon as he scored that, the place just went absolute. Boric's done like a wee dance. I think his hands went like that or something, the wee jazz hands. And I could just remember Parkhead was absolutely bouncing that night. It was one of the best atmospheres I can remember after that penalty shootout.
It certainly was. And were you at the match there yourself that night, James? Or where did you watch it? What's your sort of memories of it? As Franny says, a bit of a crazy atmosphere.
Aye, that's a weird season for me, that one. Because I gave up my season ticket a few years before to go and do the uni thing in Stirling, and I wasn't going to get back for every game. And that should have been my first season back at Celtic Park. and I ended up working night shifts nearly every night that the Champions League games were on. I think I saw 3 of them where I wasn't working, and the rest of them I was at work. And I watched that one in a pub in Hamilton. To this day, I still can't remember the name of it, but that's probably the most emotionally exhausted I think I have ever been in my life at the end of that game. When they missed the last penalty and we scored us, I think it's the most emotionally exhausted I can ever remember being, because that entire game was a roller coaster of emotion. It was just incredible. I remember Venegar's penalty miss like it was yesterday, and honestly, the stress and the tension of that was. I hate penalty shootouts as a result. I've never enjoyed them. I can't enjoy them, and that one was especially bad. I must admit. I think I spent most of it like that.
Listen, I think most of us just watched the shootouts between the gaps in our fingers. But thankfully, on the night, Celtic triumphed, and I think over the 2 legs we were the better team. To be fair, although I do accept I am biased, but that opened the Richies. The promised land was secured, and we were in Group D. And for the first time in our history, we were amongst all previous friends, teams that we'd faced in previous campaigns. The top one from Pot A, AC Milan, reigning European champions at the time, beat Celtic, obviously, in the last 16 on their way to winning the tournament the season before. Our old friends from Portugal, Benfica, were in Pot 2. Celtic were again the Pot 3 side, a position we were quite accustomed to in those times. And big spending Shakhtar Donetsk were the Pot 4 side. So opening game, I suppose we were all quite happy to get this one out of the way, Franny, away to Shakhtar, opening match. But we were quite confident the way that we'd built up enough European experience that this might be the first time we get a point of some sort on the board on opening night. And 8 minutes later, we were 2-0 down and just hoping it wasn't going to turn into an embarrassment. I suppose the only positive you can take for the game is we kept it 2-0 and we'll have to fight another day. The goal difference didn't get too severe.
It was one of them. I think obviously the qualifying game away to Spartak, it gave you a wee bit of belief that maybe you can go away from home, get a positive result. Like you said, a draw would have been a positive result. Opening day away from home, take a draw all day long and get out of there. But obviously you're trying to win. It's the bottom, the Pot 4 team, but we all knew Shakhtar weren't a bad team, and I think it might still be the same over in Ukraine, but they just seem to I don't know if it was round about the time when they seemed to have a lot of the oil money, but there was a mad influx of like Brazilian players, because I think it was like the way the work permits worked over there, it wasn't really work permit issues, so to speak. But it was just that guy, like I think it was Brown had a back pass, and McManus or Caldwell, I think it was McManus had another bad touch, and Brandao, it was just one of them who just always seemed to score against us, and he was one of the players for a couple of seasons. He was never ever got a challenge for like the Brazil squad, but it just seemed to be that level below, but a top kind of European class type of striker. Never got to go to the top, but he was of a good level. He might have managed to secure himself a big money move on the back of a decent season, but it was just early doors. And then I think it was Lucatelli, the boy's name, scores a header as well. Boric has no chance with either goal. And like you say, it's 8 minutes in, you're like, oh no, this could be this opening night, and the wind could have just been absolutely taken right out the campaign if you ended up getting scudded, maybe like a Bratislava a few years ago, like a 4-5-0. If that happens opening day of the campaign, you're like, oh, what are we up against here now? This is maybe the bottom team, absolutely scudded as a bath apart. So I like you say, Anthony, I suppose one of the positives, you regrouped to an extent and just played out the game and kept it reasonable after that, I suppose, and put it to bed and just looked forward to the next game.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously the final points total that we'll get to nearer on. It meant that we weren't relying on goal difference, James, but thankfully it just was something that we didn't, as I said earlier, that really could have got away from us that night, the way we were playing. I think, like as Franny says, both centre halves, it was McManus and Caldwell were a reasonably secure partnership for most of the time at their time at Celtic, but there was always, I felt, this underlying issue that the supporters kind of thought they were just sort of a few games away from their next blunder, and it seemed that two of them happened in the same time that night. But I always remember also as well Mark Wilson and Lee Naylor, the fullbacks, having a particularly bad night that night, especially in the first half. But I suppose if you'd have said that you would lose 2-0 after the 9th minute of that game, you probably would have taken it.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, and I mean, it was one of those. They were one of the teams that I really didn't want us to get, because we had played them. I think it was a couple of years before, and they gave us a doing earlier. I mean, I think they won 3-0. I think it was 0-0 at half time, but we were lucky to get a 0 each at half time, and they just destroyed us in the second half. I remember watching that in Stirling and being absolutely aghast by how good they were, or how bad we were, whichever you prefer, really. And they were one of the teams that I wanted just to avoid. The trip on its own is. I've heard all sorts of nightmare stories. For fans who'd been in the team, we got there and were exhausted and all that, and I thought, right, well, just know them. And then we got them, of course, along with Benfica, who'd beat us the year before quite comfortably. And it was 2 goals straight away in the game, unforgivable. And you're thinking, oh, this could be how many tonight? This could be an embarrassment. And yeah, we would have all took 2-0 at that point, gladly, happily, got out alive, and not so much well, but alive anyway. They were a tricky prospect. I knew they would give us a game. I did not want to get them.
Well, you're spot on. As you say, Fran, it was definitely around the time where they were, shall we say, oil rich with tycoon money, and they were buying a lot of superstar players. And but one of the things what was always kind of apparent under Strachan, for as much as you didn't know what was going to happen away from home, you were always guaranteed a fighting performance at Celtic Park, James. And after the disappointment of match night 1 came one of the most memorable nights in Celtic Park history. I feel it's one of those results that kind of go under the radar a little bit after the way, obviously, you think of Barcelona or maybe even the Juventus game from our first ever campaign, nights like that. And obviously the Seville run, of course, it was the UEFA Cup, not the Champions League. But I think when you think of the games against the sort of likes of Liverpool, etc., sometimes a lot of fans do forget that we actually beat the European champions that night in AC Milan, who were an absolute top dog team at that point.
Yep. And you might be right in terms of that it's one of the results that kind of fell under the radar, but it's one of the games that I'll remember forever. I watched that in Birds. It was the last game I think I ever watched in Birds. Well, I see a new unit called Gemma McConville. And
Evening, Gemma.
I'm saying about the Gallagher all day, trying to find somewhere good to watch it. And she hadn't been in Birds for years, and she said, we'll watch it in there. That would not have been my first choice, but it ended up a really special night. The whole night was incredible, and of course, Scotty McDonald making up for.
Had you forgiven him by that point?
Well, he certainly was forgiven that night. That was an amazing night. That whole game was amazing. I remember reading about that night. It was tremendous. It's one of the games that, honestly, as a proper cherished memory for me. It was just a great experience. I wish I had been at the game, but no, if I was going to watch anywhere, the Gallagher was the best place to watch it, because the atmosphere was tremendous. It was magical. As you say, beating the European champions, that was something special.
I think as well, Franny, I mean, of course, I remember there was tales of the AC Milan fans being up the Gallagher that night. Of course, Celtic have got a great connection historically with Inter Milan, but of course in the sort of social makeup of Milan, AC tend to be more the team that the working class supports. Not an exact science, of course, but the AC Milan fans definitely made themselves at home that day, and there's quite a few great stories of fans interacting with each other and stuff. Unfortunately, one of our fans maybe interacted a little bit too much with Dida at the winning goal, but thankfully, he lived to tell the tale that he wasn't decapitated like he acted like he had been when the fan ran on. Not that we condone that, but his behaviour was over the top. But another amazing memory at Fortress Parkhead beating the European champions.
It was before I set our notes, obviously in the comments, guys like Phil and Mark Kearney and Our very own
Evening,
Bhoys.
boys.
They're on the hang with Bhoys. If anybody's watching, he's got a charity single coming out at Christmas called Bhoys' Wish. It better be good. It better be good. That's what I'm saying. If he's drafting it up the new, it better be good. It better be good.
That's tremendous, man.
Apparently it's a charity single as well. So it's for.
Oh well, I think we'll all need to purchase that. Absolutely.
It's all good.
Definitely. Good luck with it then, boys.
I know. But that game, absolutely amazing. One of my best mates, like the Barcelona 2-1 game is that in St Johnstone when we stopped the tenor. My two favourite memories of football. One St Johnstone game because it was the first time. I think I was 13, 14 at the time. First title I can remember Celtic actually properly winning. Went to nearly every game with my dad, so I was actually there with my dad as well. So to remember my first title and I'm there with my dad was absolutely brilliant. The Barcelona game again, simply I was there with my sister, and I think Ross, for some mad reason, couldn't make it because it was me, my sister, and Ross had the season tickets together. And so my dad got it. My dad's the ultimate glory hunter. He's Celtic, Man United, Barcelona, ultimate glory hunter. But I got the pleasure to take my dad along to see arguably Barcelona's greatest ever team. And then it was just a great night for him because he gets to see that. And then he sees Barcelona and sees us win it. So I think just because if it wasn't for who was at that football, this game would probably be the top game. But it's probably saying that's probably the third game when you consider this was AC Milan, Kaká at his pomp and things like that. It was just Maldini I think he was in his pomp for his full career. So it was one of them. I think Nesta was there at the time as well, but McGeady just had him on toast. But it was just the whole game. Obviously, I think we went up 1-0. McManus bundled a goal in at the back post. Then obviously Kaká scored a penalty. Did Kaká score a penalty?
It was a penalty, aye.
Kaká, then obviously Scott McDonald.
I think, by the way, just you said they can't remember. It's up there with the Juventus one that we lost over in Turin. It's an awful penalty. Never.
Oh no, it was, wasn't it? Now that I remember, it was just one of them. They were always got to get it. But just that, I think I was similar to James there. That was the moment I think I forgave Scott McDonald. It was one of the ones I was like, right, this guy, was one of them. The guy was doing his job at the end of the day for Motherwell. But obviously, he scored the goal. Again, obviously, I'm up at the other end of the stadium for then. I'm like, do you see, obviously we're celebrating, me, Ross, and Nick at the time was just going absolutely nuts. And so he didn't actually obviously realise what happened with Dida. You just see him down. I knew, obviously, there wasn't a melee in the box. It was Caldwell was like, no, it wasn't that. I can't remember how it broke in the box, but then Scott Brown obviously laid it off. So was it Donati taking the shot or something, just a wee shot, and then it just broke to
Caldwell takes the shot,
and then it just saves it and it breaks out, and McDonald taps it in, and then so obviously we're just gone mental at that time and stuff, and then he's just the next time when you've kind of the stadium's camped down, you can just see Dida lying on the ground, the referees up everywhere, and you're like, oh no, surely it's no offside, and there's been a wee melee that we've happened and seen it, and he's been whacked, and somebody's got to get sent off. And you're like, because it was not until I think after the game you have the raid. Obviously, you see the goals given because we're looking over the official. Think he might still have his flag up, not got a clue what is going on. And then obviously social media, I don't. You struggle to get an internet signal in Parkhead now, so you had no chance in 2007 anyway getting edited. So obviously up here we had no clue why this delay is. You see Dida going off on a stretcher, you're like, what the hell has actually happened here? But then the goals given, you're like, well, whatever's happened, I'm not actually caring. They're now taking their goalkeeper off with minutes to go. And so it was not until you're listening to the raid on the way home, you hear like a Celtic fans came on and attacked them. That as it was portrayed on they has attacked them.
It was portrayed, yeah.
It's portrayed as attacked. I suppose legally I did. Legally I did. I suppose in a court of law legally I did attack him, but when you actually get home and you see the highlights, you're like, the actual embarrassment of him to actually go off to go off on a stretcher after that, and you actually see him, like obviously just taps him on the cheek. Adida initially runs after him and then falls down. But like It absolutely does. It total doubles down and gets a stretcher and everything. It just goes all in. You're like, well,
as our good pal would say on the Boise bus, don't back down, double down.
Oh, it totally has, man. Totally has.
Well, from that, we were off and running in the group, James. That was us 3 points from the opening 2 games, which was pretty much our usual to take back in the day. We then went on to match nights 3 and 4, revert back-to-back games against the Portuguese giants Benfica. And just like the year before, the scoreline of the first leg was returned in the second one. It was a 3-0 win for Celtic in 2006-07, followed swiftly by the same result over there. And it was very much the same case in this group. So again, keeping those goal concessions down. So it's one of those things you got to give the defence, I suppose, great credit for. We didn't play especially great over in Benfica, but we were doing enough, it looked like, to get a precious point until Cardozo scored with just 2-3 minutes to go to break our hearts. But then in the second leg at Celtic Park, again, a match where Benfica, you could argue, were a lot in the ascendancy. But Aid McGeady, with one of his best performances in a Celtic jersey, twist and turn most of the nights, constantly pressed the full-back up on the other side. And he got duly rewarded with a scrappy goal, but they all count right on half-time. And managed to hold out for another precious 3 points at Celtic Park. So in terms of going against the pot 2 side versus the pot 3, even Stevens after 180 minutes.
I remember I watched the first game at home and the second in work. I was working in the hostels, and I was working in a place in Partick that I think had 11 residents in it. And so most of the shift involved just sitting, watching the telly and waiting to see if they needed anything. So watching the football was no hassle. The guy was working, he was a good Celtic man. He actually kept my spirits up for that entire campaign. When I thought that we lost the league, he was the only person I knew who kept on telling me, we'll still win this, don't you worry, we'll still win this. We'll claw this back. Even if it was like 11 points, 12 points, or whatever it was, banged. He kept on saying we would win it. But I watched the second game with him and the first one at home, and I'm glad I watched the first one at home, because that is it was horribly frustrating to lose that late goal. I'd seen us do it a couple of times. Do we know lose a late one in Barcelona?
Yeah.
To lose, we lost a late one in Munich. Thanks to big Marcus Hedman, if I remember. Horrendous goal it was. And so you would think you become accustomed to seeing us shooting ourselves in the foot like that. That was epically frustrating that night, because we've got a down there the season before, and you're thinking to yourself, right, we've got 3 points. This is a massive result if we get this tonight, and we couldn't close it. Really, he'd banging against the wall. But the second one was a lot better. That was a good night at all, even though I had to watch it and work.
Well, that's it, Franny. As I say, there's none worse. I remember I worked the campaign, 2-3 campaigns before that, the year we had Barca and AC in the group. I worked back shift at the time, and there was no tellies. You were like basically listening to it. Was real radio at the time, just waiting on the scores coming through. Never forgetting we were drawn in the San Siro. Stan Varga had equalised, and then we heard we'd lost 2 goals in the 88th and 90th minute, man. Absolutely sickening. But Franny, what's your sort of own memories over the as I say, not much action in any of the 2 matches, but spoils shared and another 3 points on the board.
It was obviously the way like it was. But I say both of them weren't necessarily great games, but it was very. I think it was just both teams kind of managed it and weren't really going for it. And obviously the away game, you're sitting thinking as it drags on, you're like, this might be the point that we really need, because again, like you say, although we've only had the one game at Parkhead, you've got 3 points against AC Milan. You've got the 2 what are perceived the 2 lesser teams from that at home, and our home records, you're almost banking on the 6 points. Like you said, it was always where have we got to pick that point up for, and then you're sitting going, this could be it, because off memory, and like I did try to find some clips on YouTube, but had a nightmare trying to find anything on both these games. But I don't remember Boris really having to make any top class saves. I don't remember us being under the cosh. Equal, I don't remember us peppering their goal. And then it was just, it felt like same old Celtic, but I can just remember that feeling like you either conceded too like an early goal to absolutely kill you away from home, or that inevitable late goal came. But then you just go to the home leg and you've just got to try and right the wrong, I feel like. And it was a fairly dominant performance, I think, by us again. But obviously Benfica, any European team are going to have their chances. But then I just remember McGeady cutting in. There was a wee spell under Strack, and he was absolutely brilliant in European nights. Just seemed to shine. Then it would come to like big games in the SPL, and he would absolutely toil. I can remember him, like you say, he'd take guys like Nesta, Maldini, and the likes on toast, and then Kurt Broadfoot would take him in his back pocket. And you're like, this doesn't make sense, mate. Doesn't make sense. But he cuts in, and he liked to do that a lot, like just cutting in for the left and taking a strike on. They take a strike on, you get a lucky break. It takes an absolute wicked deflection and goes in the opposite corner. But it's one of them, you've got to buy a ticket to win the lottery, really, and that's what attain the shot. And sometimes you need that wee bit of luck. So it was, like you say, it was even Stevens over the two legs, and it kept us well within the group.
It certainly did, and there'll be more about McGeady later on when we pay tribute to one of our greatest sons. He was very much one of the focal points of the 2008 campaign. But Franny, I'm going to come straight back to you because you were talking about late goals there. As late goals come, they don't come more dramatic than the late winner in this next match. Match night 5, Shakhtar Donetsk, Celtic Park, our final home game of the group stage. And basically we absolutely had to win to give ourselves any chance of qualifying. Thankfully, beating Benfica gave us a good, decent chance of at least making the UEFA Cup. But the fact that Shakhtar were going to be at home to Benfica in the final group game, and we were away to AC, meant that we were still very much in the media, the underdogs. And maybe around this time, it's understandably so, just given the way the group had been panning out. And we lost an early goal to Brandao. It was actually a mistake by our current assistant manager, John Kennedy. He'd obviously made his long-awaited return from the horrific injury 3 years before, but sadly for John, it never really kind of quite worked out. And I actually believe this was definitely one of the last games he actually ever played for Celtic. But we rallied, and we had a great equaliser by Yuri Jarosik right on the stroke of half-time. Great time to get it. Again, great play by Scott McDonald to draw the defender away, giving Jarosik that space, and it absolutely unleashes an unstoppable volley into the far corner. It's one of my favourite Celtic Champions League goals, I have to say. It was right up. I was sitting in 1-1-1 in those days, and absolute bedlam. And we absolutely huffed and puffed the second half. Just didn't think we were going to break them down. I was at an evening with Gordon Strachan a couple of weeks ago. It was one of his life and football nights at Lanark Town Hall, and a Celtic supporter asked him if he could bottle just any one moment or even one game of his time at Celtic, what would he remember most? And he did say sort of overall was obviously meeting and forging a friendship with Tommy. But in terms of a match itself, he said it would probably be this game, because apparently the Shakhtar bench, they were instructing their players to time waste because a draw very much suited them. They were antagonising the referee and instructing their players to sort of give away cheap fouls to frustrate us. And Gordon says it was one of the few times he really lost his cool celebrating at the end of the match. He went absolutely, took great delight, shall we say, in winding them up with the end result. But again, that man, Aidan McGeady, just flinging a ball across a sort of a Hail Mary, as they call it in American football, and getting on the end of it was our summer signing, Massimo Donati, who just struck a foot out, took a deflection, but it was enough to take it away for the keeper. Cue utter bedlam in the stands.
It was brazen head. I watched it as well. So that one of the nights I'll never forget. Amazing.
But you're doing all right remembering nights when you seem to be in a lot of pubs.
Aye, there is a pattern developing there. On the really big nights, if I can't be at Celtic Park, I like to be in the pub. The really big ones.
Class.
The atmosphere, you can't beat the atmosphere and a good brutal.
I know. That night I was amazing, Anthony, because like I say, pretty much secured us last 16. It was giving us a really good chance of being the last 16, the Champions League, but it also the one guaranteed us UEFA Cup football. Anyway, so it guaranteed that Highland getting European football after Christmas, what they all talk about and stuff. So, and then to win any game in that sort of manner is always brilliant. But coming back for 1-0 against a really good team at the big table in the Champions League. Like say Yaris, was it just a 4 or just after half time he scored that? I feel like it was just a 4 because I think it was at
just
my
before,
end.
yeah, right on the stroke of half time.
He also shot it to Matt, and it was a similar angle for like maybe similar to Taylor's against Livingston. The angle that he was standing at then, but it's just maybe even a wee bit of tighter angle and just somehow rifles one into the top bins at the opposite end. And I think that's our very own Stephen. I think that's where his love for Yarasik began because he loves Yarasik for it somewhere. And then, like say, it was the winning goal. McGeady just digs a cross out for nowhere. Isn't a brilliant cross in all fairness, but then it breaks out to Donati and something to McGeady just takes a shot. You have been putting them under a bit of pressure, and everybody's camping the box. I feel like apart from Boris, probably everybody was up that end of the park within about 20 yards outside the Shakhtar the goal. So as one of the ones, if Donati can get a clean enough strike, if he can get the strike he wants, it's a goal essentially. But it's clever, I think. Whether it's intentional, I don't think it's a miss, but his side foot, it's a controlled shot, which I think was clever in the sense, like the ball breaks to you, dying seconds of the game, names and lights, you could absolutely rifle that, then it's in Rose Ed. But he controls it, plays it along the ground. It has got to take a wee bit of luck to get through all that level of body players and still hit the target and go in. But as luck would have it, it takes a deflection and kind of loops a wee bit in. And it's just that one, just a nice controlled shot, gets the luck that he deserved. And the place was absolutely nuts, Anthony. Absolutely nuts.
It sure was. I ended up about 5 rows in front of me that night, mate. It was absolute pandemonium, but it's they're just the right kind of pandemonium. And James, like we were saying earlier, that result gave us a good chance of qualifying for the group, but it was also meant that we'd taken 9 points for 9 in the group stage at home that year. And scary enough, just when I was looking back through notes, it's actually the last time where Celtic have done that, won all 3 games in the group phase of the tournament. Hopefully, we understand, football's changed dramatically even since this campaign, but we have to say that it's something that whilst we might not get back to 9 points for 9 anytime soon, it's hopefully something that we can build on. We had some good performances in the tournament this year. Hopefully we can turn those good performances into results in seasons to come.
It was the only thing that it was the only kind of silver lining I took for Brendan Rodgers leaving, was that our performances in Europe had to improve because Fortress Parkhead simply did not apply when he was there at all. And back in the days, every team was terrified to come to Celtic Park. Didn't matter who they were in Europe, they were all terrified at Celtic Park because we had beaten everybody there. And within a few years, it was no more, unfortunately. And you're right. I mean, part of it is the fact that European football has changed a lot. But part of it is just that we went through a spell where we just... the great European record that we spent years assembling was dismantled pretty quickly.
It certainly was. Like you say, these things that can take so long to build can be taken away very quickly if things aren't progressing off the park. But as we say, Franco, that result gave us still an outside chance of qualifying because we had to. All we needed apparently was a point against the European champions, no mean feat, which unfortunately we didn't manage in the last game. We didn't really lay a glove on AC Milan at all in that match. I don't even recall even there being much of a half chance that night in the San Siro. However, our good pals from Portugal done us a massive favour as they surprisingly went away from home and defeated Shakhtar 2-1, which put Shakhtar from, at the time, second place down into fourth, and Celtic qualified in second place with 9 points, and infamously reported by Super Scoreboard at full time that Celtic, and I swear to God this is true, Celtic failed to qualify for the UEFA Cup as they sneaked into the last 16 via the back door. How finishing second qualifies as the back door? I just thought that's the rules of the competition. But yeah, safe to say the mainstream media were absolutely fizzing.
And they wonder why we don't like them.
Exactly. Wonder why we maybe call us paranoid.
Incredible.
Is that how you report getting qualifying for the last 16?
I couldn't believe it. Failed to qualify for the UEFA Cup. Have you ever heard the likes of it?
That's stunning.
I know. But I can't remember much of the game, Anthony, but I think as a Celtic person myself, I was more focused on the other game because our away record wasn't great in Europe, albeit in the UEFA Cup or Champions League, it wasn't great. So I think realistically down, you were sitting going, it's all on, although AC Milan were qualified, and I don't think they could finish at anything but top in the last day there. So there might have been a wee bit of you going, well, maybe they'll not be full at it, but like I said, they're European champions. These players are always at it, even though I don't think they rested many. I don't think, if any, but even they're sort of second string or top players. But I think for me anyway, and probably a lot of the fan base, it was, well, we're cheering on Benfica that day.
Aye, we've always classed them as the good guys. They're a good mob. And James, that as Fanny says, AC Milan couldn't, but were always finishing top at that point. The final group standings on the after the 6 games were AC Milan qualified first with 13 points. Celtic with 9 went in the back door to the to the knockout phase. Benfica finished on 7, and Shakhtar finished with 6 points, so went out of Europe altogether. So there we were for the second year in a row in the last 16 of the Champions League. We thought it was just going to, this was fast becoming the norm. Unfortunately, it's only happened once since. But credit to Celtic. We hoped for a half-decent draw that we could maybe get through the glass ceiling into the quarter-finals. And there we were, drawn against the Barcelona team that was fast becoming its way to being a pretty decent side, shall we say. But believe it or not, in the knockout phase, we actually took the lead twice in the opening match at Celtic Park. First through Jan Vennegoor Hesselink after 15 minutes, which a little guy called, well, I think I can't remember his name, I've got it here, Lionel Messi. He equalised after 18 minutes.
What's he ever meant to achieve?
Our January signing, Barry Robson, continued that trait of only touching the ball once but scoring a goal. He was the Yakimakis of his day. Put us 2-1 up at half time, but the Catalan Giants did show their class in the second leg, the second half, and eventually ran out 3-2 winners. They were also 1 up after 2 minutes in the Nou Camp, and similar to Shakhtar in the opening night, we thought this could be a real sore one. But incredibly, the match only finished 1-0, and we went out 4-2 respectively on aggregate. But all in all, we were definitely competitive in that match against Barcelona, especially the first game.
I definitely remember us taking the lead twice. I remember that Henry scored 1, and I remember being mesmerised to watch this player who everybody was talking about. That guy you mentioned, his name escapes me. It was evident watching him that night that you were watching the formation of a proper global football icon. And I think it was Guardiola's first season as manager. And so his ideas were only just starting to be put into place. But you could see what they were trying to do, and you could kind of see the direction of travel was going to be something special. But he was immense that night. It's one of the most complete football performances I think I've ever seen a player give against us. One of the other ones being he's Brazilian Barcelona later on, who I don't want to mention. But it's one of the profoundly good experiences to watch an opposing player, even if he is pulling you apart, because you could just see the quality the guy had, and you knew he was going to be special, really, really special, like out the top draw special. I don't know if we realised we were watching a greatest of all time special, but you could tell it was going to be in that bracket that everybody would be talking about for years.
Yeah, he certainly he turned out no bad, shall we say. And Franny, it's just sort of your own kind of thought, your memories of us taking them on that night. As I say, it felt for a while that it was almost like an event that we didn't feel out of place. I don't think Celtic ever really do feel out of place on the big nights in Europe, but it just felt great taking the league twice against, but really taking it to them, because we did know that this side, you could see quite clearly that they were become. They've always been a massive club, of course, but you could tell that they were going into a right sort of purple patch in their history. Obviously, the following year they won their own treble, the La Liga, Copa del Rey, and the Champions League as well. They stopped Manchester United for being the first team to win 2 in a row, and that was a great Man United side as well, but they made them look very ordinary the year after. But yeah, it was a night where we more than gave a good account of ourselves just over the 2 legs. We just couldn't quite do it.
The first leg was, I think it's one of the ones when it gets to that stage, you probably prefer the first leg to be at home to try and make an impact with your home record and stuff. But I can remember I was just similar to James, buzzing to go to the game, because I'd never, Arsenal were kind of my English team that I liked following, because it was when we got Sky, Wenger had kind of came in, your Henrys and all the Petites, Overmars started to come. So I'd never actually seen Henry live, so I was desperate for him to be starting. As silly as that sounds, I was desperate for him to be starting. And then obviously Ronaldinho, who the guy just always played football with a smile. There was the stories about Messi, this wee mercurial talent. You were like James said, you realise you were watching a good player, but no way would have envisioned he would go on to achieve what he did. I always thought he would turn into a very good football player and things, but never go and do what he's actually done. And then obviously they'd brought in guys like Deco and things. Xavi was there, Iniesta was there, Abidal. I mean, I felt sorry for Paul Caddis at right back having to go up against Ronaldinho on that.
Yeah. You quieted yourself not too badly.
He done all right, but what a baptism of fire that is in a game of football. But very good. Like I think it was Naylor crossed it in for Hesselink, and he gets in between. I think it's Marquez. I think he got a header and just bullets a header in. Does what Hesselink does. Messi then just shows the type of class that he's got. I think he just kind of picks the ball up and just a wee drag back and just caresses it in. He's done it millions of times after that as well. A similar just passes the ball, and then let's say Barry Robson. Scott McDonald kind of picked it up in the edge of the box and dinked a crossover, and it was the weirdest header to score ever, I think, because it just seemed to loop away up. So, because obviously that was at mind as well, and you just felt like that was gone miles over, and it was like that's went in. It just somehow dropped in, and then but I think that kind of upset Barcelona. And you were like, I think that was kind of late on in the first half, and you're just sitting going, right, get to half time at this scoreline. You can well, not regroup, but you can have a good chat and say, right, we're 45 minutes away from getting ourselves a fighting chance away from there. They'll maybe come out and we can catch them on the counter and maybe even somehow take a 3-1. But then Caldwell just does this absolute ludicrous pass, gives it to Henry, then does like anybody that has watched any football doesn't show Henry inside, and he just shows Henry inside, and he curls an absolute amazing goal. And it's a really good goal, but then it's a terrible pass, and you just let a guy like Henry's run at you, and then Messi just scores the winning goal with just caressing it in. I've got his first one mixed up because it was actually kind of chips it into the top of the net or something. The first one, and it does a wee 1-2 at the edge of the box, but it was to think that. I think guys like us, you've got to, football fans, when it comes to Messi and Ronaldo, I was always kind of Ronaldo of late, and then the Messi one just after the World Cup, I think a wee bit of that's swayed me to Messi, but then I think you've just got to sort of kind of sit back and go, the chances of you being alive is pretty slim. And then the chance of you being alive to act at the same time we've seen Messi and Ronaldo's full career, not just part of it, actually seeing their full career is absolutely amazing. And it's just, that guy's an absolute special player. I mean, that was the beginnings of an absolute special team in that. Like you say, your Iniestas and Xavi were in there, and Eto'o was about and stuff. And
it's weird you should say that, because when you said Paul Gaddis at right back, I was like, what? I need to go and check that team. I need to go and check the two starting 11s that night, right? It's pretty terrifying.
Aye, and then the way like they bat, what was only 1-0. They battered us, what I can remember.
Yeah, subs that night were Mark Brown, Evander Snow, Chris Killen, and Darren O'Day.
Wow.
Their unused subs were Pinto Silvino, Giovanni, and Sharam, but they brought on Xavi, Good Johnson, and Samuel Eto'o.
Madness.
If that's not a David and Goliath battle, I don't know what is. But I think that's one of the things you've got to credit Strachan's sides were. They would always give 110%. It was a minimum for them really, and it's whilst we went out, I think it was yet another campaign of great memories in the Champions League. And guys, just before we go tonight, I want to pay tribute to, as we were talking about earlier. First of all, someone who he classed as a father figure had, for me, his best season in a Celtic jersey this year, and we've spoke about him a little bit, Aidan McGeady. But when we go back to the Spartak Moscow penalty shootout, I think one of the most stunning, one of those moments captured in time, when Boric saves the penalty, and there's of course the celebrations and the pile-on. James, and it's whoever took the photo. I don't know if it was a Celtic employee or if it was someone for the mainstream media. It's the pile on of all the players and coaches jump on top of one another, and right at the top, the most joyous of them all, doing a leap of unbridled joy, is the late great Tommy Burns. Tommy unfortunately passed away at the end of this season. This would have been the last campaign that he would have seen before he sadly lost his battle with cancer. But we just thought it'd be good to end the show tonight paying tribute to him. And I've just got, and as I say, it's with his stats here. They're from Celtic Wiki, so they're as accurate as I hope they can be. You know, his basic stats, is, if you want to call it, is 467 appearances for the club, 81 goals. As a player, he won 6 league titles, 4 Scottish Cups and a League Cup. Of course, he managed the club to a Scottish Cup title in 1995 and was head of the youth academy for many years after that. But I think he's one of those characters, one of those individuals at the club that mere numbers don't even begin to do justice of what he means to the supporters, not just of that generation, not even just of our generation, but the legacy he leaves behind. And I just thought we'd pay to it. I'll let you go first. Just sort of to pay what Tommy Burns, the man means to you.
Oh, sorry, was that?
That was for you, James. Yeah, sorry.
Well, there is a story about Julius Caesar travelling through a village in Gaul, and one of his fellow officers said to him, "Can you imagine living in a place like this? Can you imagine being leader in a place like this?" And Caesar said, "I would rather be the first man here than the second man in Rome." And Burns could have been the first man at just about any club in Britain that he chose, because he had a very modern outlook in management terms. He had a difficult time at Celtic. He got too emotionally involved as Celtic manager, but he had a football philosophy that was years ahead of its time. And he had learned a lot of things in his, in the year before he became manager, traveling around the Ajax and all that, and taking all these lessons. And he could have gone on and been a manager anywhere else, and he preferred to be a coach at Celtic Park. That's how much our club meant to him. And in a modern era, where a guy like Giakoumakis gives you 18 months and people want to discuss whether or not he's left a legacy. Tommy Ball's left a legacy.
No, I can't really put it much better than that. What about yourself, Franny? Just a few words to what the great man means to you.
Obviously, I can't remember him as a player. It's more as a coach and manager and things. I can remember him as a manager. Again, it was a lot of the football I went to with my dad back then and stuff. I think it was actually at Hampden his season as well when we went. But then bringing in guys like Di Canio, Cadet and Hoydonk and stuff, like James said, that was playing free up front. It was well ahead of his time. Well ahead of his time playing free up front and stuff. But it was seeing the joy in his face when we won that Scottish Cup as well, what that meant to him. He knew what it meant to the club. He knew what it meant to the fans. He had that statement. I can't remember. I think it was Brown Moore had said, not it was Monty saying how they're there, they're always there, and things like that. He's got all that behind him. But I was just the guy lived the dream. He played for Celtic. He captained Celtic. He managed Celtic. He was probably a ball boy as well. Celtic was for him a bit of a generational thing. It was just one club was all he needed, and it was Celtic was that club. He absolutely loved the club. The fans absolutely loved him. You hear it. But guy like I like that open goal. Even Cy Ferry speaks highly of him. Like you hear tons of ex-players, like a lot of the younger players anyway, from that the youth setup, how good he was for them. I think he even ran some of the, gave them some of the lift back and forth for training and things like that. So there isn't enough words to properly describe the guy, but he's just an absolute. He'll always be remembered as being. He will be a sort of a Mr. Celtic, so to speak.
I think so, and I think it goes without saying that the club was sort of emblazoned on his soul, so to speak, and I think it was quite fitting that, as James was saying earlier, it was a campaign that domestically we were behind for very long periods, and it looked like we weren't going to do it, and against all odds, we won it up at Tannadice on the Thursday night in May, a place where he himself had scored the winning goal many years previously to win in a 4-2 win that year, and they won the old Premier Division title. It was quite a fitting ground for Celtic to win it at that year, and as our title winning T-shirts just said that night, the perfect picture of him with his hands joined almost in a prayer-like pose with his Celtic jersey on. It just simply said, "You're always with us and you'll never walk alone." I think that kind of pretty much sums it up. He was just, for me, an unequivocal Celtic legend, and the club, and I think the whole of football is a lesser place for Tommy not being there. But we certainly paid tribute to him that season with winning the title against all odds. But in terms of tonight's show, boys, that sort of wraps up this little trip down memory lane. Have you enjoyed yourself, firstly, Franny?
It's been good. It's been good just to reminisce and depress myself that I've not got a season ticket anywhere, remembering all these good nights, Anthony.
You never know. Maybe that waiting list, maybe with all the money that we've got in the bank, we might stick another tier on that south stand, and that waiting list will come down a little bit, and you'll be able to get back in.
Somebody will need to convince my girlfriend first, but that I can get away for the weekend with 2 wins and leave the 2 wins with her.
Oh, it's a fortnightly duel for me, mate. It can be a task. And yourself, James, it's always great to have you on, mate. Have you enjoyed it?
I have, mate. The only thing better than talking about Celtic is watching Celtic. So it was great, mate, as ever.
Absolutely. Well, as I say, hopefully have you back on again soon. It's been a great little trip down memory lane tonight, and of course, good luck to the boys tomorrow in Scottish Cup action. 5:30 kickoff, boys, tomorrow night, live on the Viaplay channel, and fire sticks up and down the country. So all the best, and wherever you're watching the game tomorrow, here's hoping it's a relatively hassle-free exit into the trip into the quarterfinals for the boys. So enjoy your football over the weekend, guys, and we'll be back on Monday night to review all things Scottish Cup match against St Mirren. Cheers and hail, hail.
Speak soon.